Can you really trust Kevin Owens? Based on the title of this video, the answer is obviously no. Or maybe yes. We're not sure. Although he might be a babyface that the fans can cheer now, you can always consider at some point that Owens' evil side will show itself. He even has a tattoo of that. Kevin Owens is one of the modern-day greats in WWE, and one of the all-time greats, Hulk Hogan, is someone who once told Eric Bischoff on his podcast why he was able to spot Kevin Owens' talent early on in his WWE career. "I watched him work an NXT match, and he was just grinding old school like a heel, brother." I assume he said brother. The Hulkster is essentially saying that KO's fundamentals in storytelling, wrestling psychology, made him a fantastic villain, and he even went on to compare him to Hollywood Hogan. Yes, Hulk Hogan's villainous persona in WCW and the late great Pat Patterson. That psychology, the mind games, are something that KO can play as aggressively as he does the brutal physicality in the ring of pro wrestling. In this video, we'll dive deep into the different sides of Kevin Owens, the good, the bad, and the side you definitely shouldn't trust. I'm Kevin, it's Sportskeeda Wrestling. Let us know what was your favorite heel turn, treacherous betrayal moment in pro wrestling history in the comments below. Also, you see the thumbs up button. Hit the like. A bruised and battered Kevin Steen took a super kick onslaught, and after the match where him and Generico lost, he appeared to give an emotional speech saying that this would be the end, only to low blow Generico. I did not intend for that to rhyme. Owens had long been associated with Generico, but broke free and kickstarted one of the greatest wrestling stories of the decade, one that would pour over into different promotions and eventually reach the main event of WrestleMania. Over the next 3 years, Steen managed to establish himself as one of Ring of Honor's breakout stars, with a crop of other names that would go on to dominate the future decade of pro wrestling. A year later at Final Battle, El Generico would get his first taste of revenge on Kevin Steen in a mask versus career match, sending Steen out of Ring of Honor, but he wouldn't be gone for long. Prior to the send-off at the hands of Generico, Steen's contract with Ring of Honor was due to come up, and there were financial budgetary concerns. There was also conflicts between him and the new head booker of Ring of Honor, wrestling legend Jim Cornette. Steen at one point claimed that Cornette froze him out of Ring of Honor during this time, believing that he was keeping the president, Kerry Silkin, in the dark about when, if Steen could be brought back. Steen was able to get back at the Best in the World pay-per-view in June of 2011, only to be told that he'd have to wait another 6 months to return to Ring of Honor. Steen was motivated to lose weight and get in shape and break the system around him to become the top guy in ROH. Despite Steve Corino, an established name in Ring of Honor, being one of the advocates who vouched for Owens to return, Owens turned on him as he made the save from a beatdown, once again fooling people who thought that Kevin Owens was gonna be a good guy. No, he's not. Yeah, he came back at Final Battle and whooped Corino. The crowds cheered for him anyway, as he got himself reinstated into Ring of Honor by beating Corino. A few months later, Kevin Owens, we'll keep calling him that, defeated Davey Richards to become world champion, and he made amends with Corino and formed a faction known as Scum, along with Jimmy Jacobs. It was perfect timing for him, as they had helped him hold the world title for nearly 11 months, with his biggest title defense being against, guess who, El Generico at Final Battle 2012. Unlike 2 years before, he got the better of his longtime frenemy. But when he lost the world title to Jay Briscoe, Steen Owens found himself on the receiving end of a betrayal. Yeah, for the first time, he was the one being betrayed when he was kicked out of Scum by Steve Corino, who finally got his revenge. He spent the remainder of his Ring of Honor tenure as a babyface who the fans loved to cheer, feuding with Scum and eventually chasing down all of the men who turned on him, disbanding the group. When mid-2014 came, he defeated Corino in his final Ring of Honor match. At the same time this was all going on, he was working simultaneously with the acclaimed California promotion PWG, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, where he turned on his then partner Rick Knox to form the Mount Rushmore of Wrestling faction with Adam Cole and the Young Bucks. PWG was a big part of Owens' rise up the wrestling ladder. Though he came out of Montreal, Los Angeles, and the California indie promotion is where his name really started to rise and how he actually got into Ring of Honor. Around this time, more speculation began to mount about Owens, still then Kevin Steen, making the leap to WWE. While still trekking around the world and being a massive star in the independent circuit, he would also capture the AAW Heavyweight Championship, but WWE NXT was calling. With the rise of the independent influence on mainstream wrestling, WWE truly embraced it with NXT, and quickly changing their developmental brand into a hotbed for all-star lineups of independent wrestling stars. And Kevin Steen, now Kevin Owens, was gonna be one of those stars. He belonged in the conversation with WWE, cleverly positioning him initially as a babyface, a fighting guy, when he debuted at NXT TakeOver Revolution in late 2014, and he defeated Juice Robinson, then known as CJ Parker, that same night. El Generico, who had gone on to take on the name Sami Zayn, was now unmasked and reached the highest point of his career, and he faced Neville for the NXT Championship, embraced by Kevin Owens, his former tag team partner and friend at the end of the night. What a great moment, just like that, so sweet. Just 5 years prior, remember when he turned on you? It was a ruse. Kevin Owens powerbombed Sami Zayn on the apron in a brutal scene, establishing him as a man who could not be trusted and would break hearts just to get ahead, even his best friend. Kevin Owens quickly took over WWE NXT by storm. Just 2 months after his debut there, he became the WWE NXT champion, dethroning Sami Zayn in a referee stoppage. That's right, powerbombing him to a point where the refs just had to stop the match and say, this guy's so bad, we're giving him the title. Yeah, he was positioned as the next bad monster guy who was just gonna have no mercy for everyone. 16 days before the rematch, Sami Zayn made his Raw debut in his hometown of Montreal, being introduced by the legendary Bret Hart to a massive ovation. Yeah, those Canadian fans love their Canadian wrestlers, and he was answering John Cena's Open US Championship Challenge. On his way to the ring, Sami Zayn dislocated his shoulder when he threw his arms up in the air. He was so excited. This proved to be another pivotal moment for him and also for Owens. They would go through with their rematch at NXT TakeOver Unstoppable, but it ended in a no contest, with Owens beating him down to write him off while he spent nearly a year recovering. Owens was making such noise in WWE NXT that he got called up to the main roster fairly quickly, and in case you didn't notice, he's one of the few superstars to do it actively as the WWE NXT champion. But the fact that they had him debut and beat John Cena clean in his debut match on the main roster showed you that there were high hopes for the evil things he would do as a top-level heel in the future. And while he didn't reach that spot for the most part, even during his initial run as WWE Universal Champion, a title, by the way, that he got because Triple H betrayed someone else, always back to the betrayals, Owens was still a top-level superstar that WWE could trust in pivotal storylines. A large part of that can be credited to Sami Zayn, always his arch rival and maybe even sometimes his best partner, and another very good friend, Chris Jericho. Owens and Zayn were fortunate enough to begin their rivalry once again during an incredibly hot period post-WrestleMania 32 in 2016. This series of matches culminated with one of their matches at Battleground 2016, a true masterclass in storytelling and psychology that Hulk Hogan had mentioned before. In what would be a rather fitting moment, Sami Zayn was the one who was about to show KO mercy before he decided to finish him off. These two have so much chemistry together. How many times will we get to see them perform together in the future? The match was reportedly so good that WWE boss Vince McMahon pulled him in for a hug. Why was it so special? Because Owens explicitly said in an interview on WWE Break It Down that they didn't have a hugging kind of relationship. Somehow it was KO who ended up being the bigger beneficiary, even though he wasn't the winner, which was largely in part due to his incredible partnership with Jericho. While SmackDown Live was thriving thanks to the brand split, Raw wasn't doing nearly as well, and despite having an objectively stronger roster. Just like he filled Sami Zayn's role 2 years ago, he stepped up when Finn Balor suffered an injury at SummerSlam 2016 and became the second Universal Champion. Future Hall of Famer Chris Jericho, now at Owens' side, was in the midst of an incredible renaissance, once again reinventing himself and entertaining audiences with his list of Jericho antics. Them with the title. But in WWE, good things don't last forever, which brings us to the infamous Festival of Friendship. It was the road to WrestleMania 33 in Orlando, and Owens managed to get the better of his challenger, Roman Reigns. Remember how we mentioned on 2 separate occasions that he had people fooled by acting good before making the ultimate betrayal? He took a page out of the exact same playbook here, first gifting Jericho a new list before he asked, "How come my name is on this list?" After which, it was revealed to be the list of KO. Longtime fans had known KO's tendency to betray his partners, but never, ever had it happened under such bright lights and big circumstances. Now, Jericho was back in the fans' good graces, and his target was Kevin Owens going into WrestleMania. Unfortunately, we weren't going to get the emotional highs with the big match payoff like we got in Ring of Honor or NXT. It was followed up by a 22-second Universal title loss defeat, for Kevin Owens at the hands of the returning Goldberg before WrestleMania. And that meant Jericho versus KO at Mania was going to be something else. Jericho and Kevin Owens got to battle for the United States Championship in the second match at WrestleMania that year, and reportedly both of them were not happy with it, and even McMahon was not happy with the results either. Owens got a fresh start on SmackDown, where he had a hit-and-miss feud with AJ Styles, and it failed to take off as a top-level program for him to be the top villain, even though SmackDown presented the perfect opportunity. The SmackDown Live show, which was considerably better than Raw at that point for about 8 months, was gutted when the biggest superstars were moved to the flagship 3-hour show. While it looked like the perfect opportunity for Owens to become the top villain of a gutted roster, the focus was placed on Jinder Mahal instead, as WWE looked to expand internationally into the growing market that was India. As the teachers say, he just kept fighting, and in late 2017, Owens headbutted Vince McMahon into a bloody mess during his feud with SmackDown Commissioner Shane McMahon. That's right, he was in a bitter blood feud with the McMahons, so don't worry, he was going to be back up the card. If you're working with the McMahons, you're working up the card, and it was against Shane McMahon at Hell in a Cell, where Sami Zayn pulled him out of the way as Shane McMahon leapt off the cell, helping him win the match, and Zayn turned heel and then aligned himself with Owens? Wow, we didn't expect that. It was the first time for Zayn in his WWE career. Together, they terrorized SmackDown in a story that led to Daniel Bryan returning from retirement and having a match against Bryan and McMahon at WrestleMania that year. A very underrated match, by the way. Their loss at WrestleMania meant that they were kicked out of SmackDown and they were forced to move to Raw, only getting a spot thanks to Stephanie McMahon. But their partnership on Raw was cut short when Zayn suffered another major injury, keeping him out of action for 10 months. Owens, once again on his own, persisted on having a great feud with one of the hottest stars in the company at the time, Braun Strowman, with the best moment of the rivalry coming when KO beat Strowman in a steel cage match by getting tossed from the top. But he followed Sami Zayn to the sidelines with nagging injuries to his knees from years of wear and tear that led to him getting surgery. He would be out for only a few months and was seemingly positioned to return as a fan favorite to challenge a now not so fan favorite Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 35. Unfortunately for him, though, Kofi Mania was taking over. Kofi Kingston was the guy, and before his return, plans changed, pal, with him replacing Kofi Kingston at Fastlane in a triple threat match that also involved Mustafa Ali. Daniel Bryan's planetary powers were able to help him win that match, and Owens ended up missing out on that year's WrestleMania altogether for the first time since his main roster debut. Still in the fans' good graces, Owens temporarily replaced Big E in the New Day for a little bit, but Daniel Bryan getting injured at WrestleMania meant that SmackDown needed a top villain, a top heel, and they needed them right away. Insert Kevin Owens once again. Being Kofi Kingston's first challenger for the WWE Championship meant that he was never really going to win. Yeah, the momentum was in Kofi's side, but he stepped up yet again when he was called to, and he even reunited with Sami Zayn again, albeit briefly. This time their separation wasn't forced by betrayal, but instead by a change of plans. WWE began to push Owens as an anti-authority babyface, going up against Shane McMahon, similar to how his idol Stone Cold Steve Austin stood up against Vince McMahon years and years earlier. Instead, it was Sami Zayn who was thriving to turn villainous once again, becoming the mouthpiece for Shinsuke Nakamura during his title run as Intercontinental Champion. KO's feud with Shane McMahon led to both men putting their careers on the line on the SmackDown on Fox debut, with Owens getting the win and effectively ending Shane's tenure as the commissioner of SmackDown. That was also one of the most watched WWE TV shows of that year. Yeah, Owens was over with a big audience. He continued to be an important star as he was drafted to Monday Night Raw, becoming the victim of Seth Rollins, who is now villainous, and introduced the AOP as his muscle. He did get the last laugh of Rollins in the best in-ring match at WrestleMania 36. Yes, the show that took place in closed doors. It was a hell of a match during those dark days where we were just hoping we would all be able to see wrestling again. Throughout the Thunderdome era, where there were no fans present, Owens proved himself to be yet again another highly skilled performer, able to convey emotions and the character he was called to play, this time being a reliable babyface in times when we really needed a hero, and even came close to becoming the WWE Universal Champion in a long, drawn-out, very violent feud that used everything the Thunderdome had to offer as he chased Roman Reigns and the Bloodline for the title. The Bloodline's interference, though, seemingly always keeping him from getting that title. It was only later in 2021 when he turned heel once again by attacking the then WWE Champion Big E and then Finn Balor the next week, but that wasn't really so much a betrayal as it was him saying, "Hey, I'm really back. I'm back to being evil again." It didn't result in him becoming the WWE Champion again, but he got something even bigger, a spot in the main event of WrestleMania 38 Night 1 against his childhood hero, returning for his first real WWE match in a long time, Stone Cold Steve Austin, who returned to the ring, after being pitched just a short story. Stone Cold said that even though he was never going to return to the ring, things changed when Kevin Owens' name was presented. In an interview with Justin of the Wrestling Classic that week, he said, "Once they said his name, the creative process continued into what it was, and not for it to not be a full-blown match, but a talk segment that turned into what a match would be. I love Kevin Owens. I was happy to share the ring with him." I was at WrestleMania 38. It was incredibly special, and Kevin Owens proved once again that he can be the guy in that position to pull off a special storyline with a lot of expectations. Just think about it. Out of the major top-level marquee attractions in WWE history, Hulk Hogan endorsing him, John Cena was his first main roster feud and win, and Stone Cold came out of retirement after nearly 19 years just to have a match against him. You can have a championship belt, and you can lose it, but you'll never lose that type of honor. Oh, and as for The Rock, he called Kevin Owens and Adam Cole two of the best in a single tweet. But a few years before that, he posted a photo of himself backstage with Kevin Owens. He even recalled a conversation he had when training for a return with Kurt Hawkins, mentioning the name of an up-and-coming wrestler named Steen. Hawkins, who happened to be friends with Steen, was told by The Rock he hoped that he would be signed by WWE. And just 5 years later, he was the Universal Champion. From once being considered somebody who didn't have the body to be a top guy, Kevin Owens has become one of the most notable, reliable, and top-level performers of his generation. It would probably seem odd if he didn't turn yet again on Sami Zayn, the two now paired together as a tag team that main evented WrestleMania against the Usos, one of the best matches of 2023, but we still want to see those turns. We love betrayal at the hands of Kevin Owens. You can't trust him, but you can trust him to have some of the best stuff every time you tune into WWE. It was only fitting that they headlined WrestleMania together. Nobody could have managed what they would be in 2023. Nobody could have managed the story that really got the emotions going, that dated all the way back to the early 2000s and would lead to them being so strongly associated with each other throughout their careers. Their success has mostly been built off of each other, but they've managed to distinguish themselves as two completely different, unique superstars. To love KO again, that's going to work as well. He simply knows how to play both sides of the coin. Despite all the nastiness and ruthlessness that took him to the top, he has an air of reliability. That word keeps coming back, reliability about him. And while you can't trust him, you can always admire him for being a once-in-a-generation talent. What do you think of Kevin Owens? Let us know in the comments below and watch more videos from Sportskeeda Wrestling.